Welcome back to the Skift Travel Podcast. I am Sarah Kopit, Skift's editor-in-chief, joined as always by Seth Borko, and it is going to be a Seth Borko special today. You all are in luck. But before we get to all of that, have you subscribed? Have you given us 5 stars? If not, why not? And if you could please do that, it helps spread the word about the Skift Travel Podcast. All right, so Seth, tell us a little bit about this conversation you had with Altimeter at Megatrends. It was my personal favorite of the day in New York.
So what we're going to air for you is my conversation with Thomas Reiner. He's a partner at Altimeter Capital, and they are longtime and very serious investors in the travel and leisure ecosystem. They're both public company investors, and they have a very big stake in Booking Holdings, and private company investors, venture capitalists. So they have this really interesting mix of insights, and Thomas and his team have a lot of really interesting thoughts to say about artificial intelligence. I have to tell you, just give our listeners, if you're a listener of this podcast, you get a little bit of extra special inside baseball. When we do Megatrends, we write the stories months in advance, we prep weeks in advance, and then every once in a while, it's live programming, something changes at the last minute, and one of our moderators had to step out. And believe it or not, I actually got asked to do this panel, to moderate this panel, basically like a couple of hours before I walked on stage. So what you're going to hear, yeah, well, we were kind of joking about how I actually think in some ways it made it a better interview because I didn't have any preconceived notions going into this, right? Like what you see my reactions on stage are pretty much my live actual reactions and takes. And it was just a totally fascinating conversation. Thomas really believes in the future of AI agents, thinks they're going to transform the industry. And as an investor, he has an outside perspective where he's able to kind of take some hammers to maybe some industry preconceived notions and really shake things up. So it was just, it's a conversation that I've been thinking a lot about in my head in terms of what it means. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was definitely my favorite of the New York panel. So it's always fun, especially when you have somebody that's willing to get up on stage and say out loud with words, maybe what's running through the heads of a lot of the people out there or in the audience. So I think that's what made this one especially a good listen. And it is why we are going to share it with all of you. Enjoy.
Hello everybody. We got to keep the energy up for the yeah, let's go. And you're applauding for a really wonderful final speaker. We've got Thomas Reiner of Altimeter Capital. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so how search is shifting and what it means for travel. You are a leisure travel investor. You have a lot of investments in tech and travel and all that sort of world. We're going to dig into some of these tech trends, what they mean for the industry, because you got a lot of thoughts, right?
A lot of thoughts. We'll have some spicy takes just to keep people on their toes.
You've been promised some spicy takes. So, I mean, look, let's just talk about the big elephant in the room, right? I mean, like AI, artificial intelligence, it's been a huge topic of discussion today in the world. One of the things I like, we talk about going from keyword to conversational, right? When you go to Google, you type in, travel Madrid. When you do a chat GPT, it's a lot more, hey, I'm looking for a hotel and blah, blah, blah. What does that mean for the industry? And is that something that you think we can really reach in 2025?
I think not only are we going to reach it, but it's already here. I mean, we're moving from a world of 10 blue links. You go to Google, you see that. Did an amazing job over the last 20 years of building that out. But that's not how humans learn, interact, travel, discover things. You go back to, you want normal conversation, whether it's text-based or whether it's voice AI. And in the world we have now, you're going to see a complete disruption of what the search paradigm is today and discovering travel. And so the perfect example of this is we're looking as a family at going to Italy in the summer. And so normally you would go to booking.com, type in Italy, select a bunch of filters, you get a bunch of options recommended to you. Maybe some of those are personalized based on your past travel. Often they're not. And it's just kind of a pain. And I'm someone who likes looking and kind of investigating and uncovering all of the ideas of what I'm going to do, how I'm going to travel. And I spent probably 15, 20 hours figuring out the ideal hotel for myself and my family. And I went to ChatGPT 01 Pro, say, here's what I want to do. I want a luxury hotel. It has to have a kids club near the beach, within an hour of an airport that has a one-stop connection from SFO. And in 3 minutes, the exact same thing that I spent 20 hours trying to find and narrow down was the number one choice. And it's just easier, it's more natural, and the end result is that we're going to see a huge amount of disruption for Google, for the OTAs, for the meta search guys, and it's just going to be very interesting, and I think 2025 will be the year that we see massive, massive change. Most definitely in terms of fundamentals, in terms of booking patterns, but as a stock analyst, I think certainly from a stock performance perspective, from a multiple that people assign to these businesses.
Thomas, you're based in San Francisco, so maybe it's fair to, I'm assuming, maybe it's fair to say you're an early adopter. Like, do you think that this mode of conversational booking that you're describing of, look, just get me I'm looking for 4-star, Southern Italy, one-stop SFO, do you think that can become truly widespread? Like, do we need a moment for that to click, or is it just going to start happening?
I mean, I think it's already happening. I mean, we see, if you look at the two kind of leading AI companies you think about, one is obviously the incumbent of Google. And you look at the number of searches that have SGE, which is essentially the AI bubble at the top. That's exploded. We heard a little bit about that from Steve earlier today. Mm-hmm. And then you have OpenAI with hundreds of millions of daily average users, weekly average users, monthly average users. Anyone who has it installed on their phone, I would go to your iPhone, go to settings, look at time spent, and look at how much time you spend using that app. On my Chrome browser, I default to, when you type in the top, search GPT. Everything I do is through OpenAI. Gemini came out with a bunch of stuff recently that is just mind-blowing in terms of deep research that you can send it out. The AI takes 10 minutes, does the amount of work that it would take people 20 hours that people pay Deloitte millions of dollars to do, or people pay Seth less than
that. They pay me. Well, jeez. Let me ask. Well, I have to.
But I guess the point, the crux of that is that people are already using it, and it's a natural extension to start searching for travel.
Well, let me ask you about trust. I've experimented with using. Genuinely, we've looked at using AI tools in some of our research processes. You're making it personal. You're bringing my job into it, and I've seen.
It's going to make you better.
Yeah, that's right. Job. And I've seen it hallucinate stuff. I've seen it just make up whole things. It's many of the companies in this room, it's said that they've done things that they've never done. There's a big trust element, and trust is a big part of travel. Most people only have a week of vacation.
Yep.
They need to make it count. That's why you still have even old-fashioned travel agents, and that's why people spend so much time. Do you think that an OpenAI kind of tool can earn trust? Like, you did the work, and then it gave you the same answer, so you knew it was right because you'd validated it. If I hadn't done that 20 hours of work, I don't know that I would trust the one answer that came up.
Now, and the reality, though, is that I do that work, and I even did it for coming here. I'm just flying in and flying out, so I'm not staying overnight, but I did the experiment of okay, ChatGPT, can you plan out my itinerary for flying here for this conference? Where should I stay? You trust, but you verify.
Yeah.
And eventually, with enough repetition of that, people get used to okay, this works. And the reality is that we'll still have people get the result from ChatGPT, and then instead of spending 20 hours or going and talking to a travel agent or going and talking to your friends of, you've been to Italy before, where should I stay? You'll spend 2 minutes after you get that response going, checking it out. Is this right? Maybe I'll go to TripAdvisor, maybe the last person who ever looks at TripAdvisor and say okay, maybe this is where I want to stay. The few reviews that from the ever-decreasing number of eyeballs on the website, agree with this, and that's where I'll end up booking.
So let's move downstream. Let's just take it for granted that this is going to really be, and I agree, I'm not arguing with you. Let's take it for granted it's going to be innovative, it's going to be transformative, we'll have conversational search. Downstream, so the first folks right downstream of Google is maybe meta search or maybe the OTAs. You've got a lot of experience investing in online travel agencies. If you're booking Expedia, another aggregator, is this good or bad? Does this help them or not?
I think it is heavily dependent upon how much unique supply and data that you have. So if we go kind of in order of kind of down that funnel, I'll do maybe the inverse. If you're Airbnb, you have a lot of unique supply that isn't available elsewhere. Yeah, there's probably 30-40% overlap with Vrbo and with a lot of the alternative accommodations on Booking, but there's not a lot that OpenAI or Gemini can go and just start automatically booking. Like, you have to go through Airbnb. That is changing over time as you get more professional and semi-professional managers on Airbnb that have their own booking websites, but there's some insulation there. Booking has a extremely large alternative accommodation, so there's some insulation there. But if you look at the kind of the fat part of the distribution curve of what's available, not a lot of that supply is necessarily unique. It's what's available on the GDS. It's what's available at 45,000 other kind of OTAs, quasi-OTAs. If you go to the Chase portal and look, that's run by Expedia, like, all of that is available. And so what's likely to happen there is that if you're a boutique hotel in Paris, for example, right now you might be paying 25% commissions to Booking for every booking that comes in. The reality is that will compress, because they'll be forced to compete, because there will be other ways for people to book your hotel room.
So you're basically saying GPTs or LLMs could cut out the OTA intermediary effectively. I think for commoditized inventory.
Anyone in this room or anyone watching who is from an airline or a hotel or a cruise line or a car rental agency, you want more direct bookings. And this, assuming you have the technological ability in terms of like the infrastructure set up at your business, you'll be able to get more direct bookings as the discovery phase of travel goes from 10 blue links on Google to discovery conversational text-based with LLMs and AI. And so as that happens and more eyeballs come off of Google in that discovery phase, more come off of Booking, more come off of meta search, like, that just compresses what margin that they are able to take. Because the same thing happened with the GDSs, right? If you go back 25 years ago, the GDSs were taking 25-30% of every booking. And the travel agent took 10-15%.
I have this debate with my team because Google has responded to many regulatory pressures, and they've democratized their search. A lot of those blue links, especially in the hotel search, are free links. That's not kicked out. You would think, in theory, a hotel, all they need to do is just hire a good SEO guy, and SEO is 20 years old. You should be able to get free business from Google. And many of them still rely on OTAs as intermediaries. Why would, even if Google went away and it was replaced with OpenAI, would there still be a need for an intermediary, or you think that this creates a new era of supply or direct-to-consumer?
There's two things. If you look from the Google perspective, there's the reality that as you move towards more SGE or kind of AI bubbles at the top, you have to make up for that revenue loss as the incumbent by adding more ads. And so it's the same thing that Steve referenced earlier where, okay, it used to be 3 or 4 kind of sponsored listings for your hotel, and now it's going to be the entire first page. And so any SEO will be on the second page or the third page. And so it's just incredibly hard to compete for that free traffic, and you're going to have to pay for it. And yes, Google as the incumbent, has an interest in maintaining kind of that market share of dollars in the ecosystem because they make so much money from the OTAs. But when you're a disruptor like OpenAI or XAI or Llama from Meta, you don't have that shackle of needing to make that money. Yeah. You might be willing to accept 2%, or you might be willing to accept no commission and you're just charging $20 per person who uses your service. You don't care if you're referring $100 billion of GBV for hotels.
We were kind of talking backstage about this. People assume that there's a fixed pool of commissions, and it's just the question is we switch how it gets divided up. And your point was actually that pool could totally transform if you're a subscription-based LLM model. That commission pool is.
Yeah, or maybe the pool stays the same size, but everything else grows. I mean, if you look back, if you look at Delta Airlines and Northwest on a consolidated basis 25 years ago, they essentially pay the same dollar amount in commissions today as they did on a consolidated basis in 1998. And the revenue is up 4 or 5x. And so like there's immense amounts of efficiency gain there. And all of that essentially came out of the GDSs, it came out of the OTAs, it came out of all this commission spend. And we're going to see the same amount, the exact same thing repeat across OTAs. And that's the best case scenario for the OTAs.
Best case scenario.
And even worse, if you're a meta search company, if you're Trivago, I don't know what you do. I think you just remember the good times. But even if you're Kayak, I mean, you have some protected statuses, like you are bigger, you're connected under this umbrella of Booking, and so there is some supply on the hotel side that is unique under the kind of Booking Holdings group. But the pure meta search price comparison, if your LLM can do it for you, if your personal voice agent in your pocket can tell you, like, look, I want to go to this hotel. Here's 3 options. I picked this option. It tells me here's what I want to know. Or even better, if it knows that, okay, I like to book through Booking.com because I think it's better customer service and it has better cancellation policies. So my personal agent will just know, go to Booking.com. Or maybe I don't care. Go to Marriott.com and book it for me direct.
Well, so I guess here's my question, because I guess what I'm hearing you say a little bit is that your ability to differentiate yourself through buy-in eyeballs is basically disappearing.
Yeah.
The online travel agencies they were basically clearinghouses of marketing dollars. They took all the commissions, they consolidated the marketing dollars, they used those dollars to win massive auction campaigns.
Marketing arbitrage.
Yeah, marketing arbitrage. Yeah. That window is closing, in your opinion.
I mean, I think if you think about businesses that existed in Web 1.0, like Yelp and like that, Groupon, like that already happened and went away. It just has maintained a little bit in travel, but I think we're now on the precipice of that going away as well.
To ask a more optimistic way of phrasing it, if the marketing arbitrage opportunity is closing, what is the way to differentiate yourself in this market today? Or in the market tomorrow, not today?
So the way to win that is to win kind of the hearts and minds of every consumer, because you need to know that, listen, in the same way that, like, if my agent knows that I want to go to Booking.com because I trust Booking.com, like, they will win a share of that. It will probably be at a lower margin, but they will maintain probably market share, and they'll have a sustainable business going forward. And because the important components are, we still kind of have to figure out payment rails of, like, are you going to trust your agent to have your credit card? Like, there's concerns about someone taking over, or kind of intermediaries getting in from kind of injection and stealing your credit card information. That'll be a solvable problem, but it'll take a little bit of time. There's customer service of, if I have an issue, I'm not going to call OpenAI. I'm not going to call Google. I mean, you can't call Google for anything, to any sort of customer service. So am I going to go to Booking? Or am I going to go direct to Marriott? Or am I going to go direct to the boutique hotel in Paris that I referenced earlier?
So we've talked, I like that. I mean, I think just to, I guess, recap, or for me to think about it, like, what you're kind of saying is, like, customers, who's going to service the booking maybe becomes the differentiator, and especially if you've got a long tail of independence, if you're able to service that could be a long-term differentiator.
And I also think that it's important to think about the supply component too. Because if you think about, in a world where everyone has a voice AI agent in their pocket that's going to start calling hotels, like, if you're a hotelier here, you don't want 45 calls an hour to your front desk asking a bunch of mundane questions that should be easily available. So there will be an infrastructure layer that is required for every single hotel, or at least every property group, to have an agent that has all the information, has all of the reservation information, pricing, all of that. And so that's an opportunity. If I were running Booking or Expedia, like, that's where I would be focusing my time, and being that software infrastructure layer to better serve and actually provide that value that they've been taking for the last 20 years to the actual supply.
Well, I want to come back to that. That's interesting. I want to come back to that. You've kind of got the audience, I think, if any of the audience works in a hotel or an airline, you've kind of got them salivated. They're dreaming of dollars and zero commissions and all this stuff. And this is sort of an audience question too. What can a supplier do? If you run a hotel or a cruise line or a car rental or an airline, and we've got those people here, what do you do to show up in an LLM? I mean, we've kind of figured out how SEO works. I still don't have my head around how SEO works in the ChatGPT era. What do you do to show up?
I would say that the caveat would be that this is all still very early. My expectation is that there will be some sort of standard, just in the same way that under the world of Google, there was robots.txt, where everyone had on their website a way for Google to read your website. There will be ways, whether you have a personal agent for your hotel, or there's ways to put information on your website that is more easily discoverable by that. But the reality is that booking a hotel with an LLM is a solved problem. The ability for a LLM to go to your website, even if it's an HTML, really basic booking form, and fill that out with your personal information, like they've been able to do that for 24 months. And if you think of even the more complex of booking a airline ticket, like just today I was looking at a video of someone who personally took a open source agent and was able to, on their computer, using computer control by the LLM, go and book a ticket on United.com, select the seat, just with text prompt, with no interaction from the actual person. And so really what it'll come down to is competing on quality, the information available. There will be some value of like reviews, because there still is a weighting of like, what do other people think? The reality is your agent will know who you are, what your preferences are. Are you a Marriott guy? Are you a Star Alliance guy? Are you like, what sort of preferences you have as a consumer? And the more information you have, the better matched the consumer will be with the product that you're offering. And so it's really goes back to the basics of executing and doing what you're already doing really well, without the distraction of, or with a lesser distraction of, getting involved in bidding for keywords or sponsored listings on whether it's Google or Booking.
I like what you're saying, but I have to say I'm not entirely sure I agree with you, because there's a lot of hoteliers who do what they do really well, and they're very bad at SEO, and they're very bad at search engine marketing, and they get left behind. Like, is there something that they're going to need? Like, I don't know. Like, I just...
Well, I guess in an SEO agnostic world, wouldn't that be better for them? In that, like, you're really living on the reviews of what the experience actually is, as opposed to your ability to do SEO. And the reality is that SEO has been dying a long death.
Which we heard from Steve.
Yeah, and that'll be accelerated by Google increasingly focused on monetizing what traffic they do have.
So this is an audience question. Where do you see the intersection of AI by UGC, user-generated content, things like Google reviews, TripAdvisor reviews? I mean, what is so UGC, user-generated content? Is that become the key to all of this? Like, if I'm running a large hotel brand, is it like, let's spool up that UGC as soon as possible so that the LLMs can start getting trained on how much our customers love our brand?
Probably. I mean, I think in a world where the reality is now in 2025, like, we live in a world where the eyeballs that you're gathering are from TikTok, from Instagram, from personal referrals from people, from those reviews, whether it's on TripAdvisor or Google or blogs, or like, so that playbook of getting the word out won't change. It's just the onus of your ability to turn what's already out there organically into something packageable and that Google can do something with will be lessened. And so I think it's kind of, yes, it's more important, but I don't think it's ever not been important.
Good point. And there was another audience question. It kind of disappeared, but it was about, at least in Google, you got first you got 4 links, then you got 10 links, the links keep growing. Yeah. But with an LLM, it might only give you one answer, right? It might just say, spit out, this is the hotel for you. If you're getting fewer results, what is that downstream implication of that for the travel industry?
For Google or for like an LLM?
For the travel industry. No, for a supplier.
What do you mean in terms of, like, I guess when I think about, like, because one thing I am concerned about, or I was initially concerned about, is the idea that if the LLM, if a model's been trained on the wealth of knowledge of hotels, that, like, if all of us go and ask what's the best hotel in Puglia, Italy, like, it'll all give us the exact same answers. And so how do you get discovered? And I think that what the work that OpenAI and the Gemini team and X and Llama are all doing, like, the next step is personalization. And so the more that it knows about you, the more it can personalize what that result is to something you want. And so LLMs having more memory, access to emails, your history, all of that will go away from this mindset of, like, oh, we're just recommending all the exact same hotel to the same 100 people, to there will be different actions. And I think, honestly, that's a better personalization method than what you get from Expedia. Because every time I go to Expedia, if I search the same thing, I get the exact same results, and I have to go and click the same 8 filters that I want. It never remembers them, and it gives me the same answers, and it probably gives everyone else the exact same answer too. And so I think if anything...
35 people are looking at this hotel at the same time as you.
Exactly. You have to book right now, otherwise the deal's going away.
What role does voice have in all of this?
I think voice is... It's almost a return to... If you think about like UX, back when we had travel agents, and if you wanted to go on a trip, you went down to your local travel agent and you had a conversation with somebody about what you wanted to do. And then they figured it out for you, and then you got your travel booking. We've spent, in the tech industry, in the internet, we spent 25 years figuring out the best way to optimize an imperfect UX. Like, how do we do A/B testing to get people to click this and click that? And that's just not the normal way that humans communicate, by looking at a screen and rank ordering things. It's very much conversational. It's very much normal communication of how two people interact. And I think voice AI unlocks the ability to have that conversation. And so I think you had referenced backstage that I recorded a video before of myself looking for this hotel using OpenAI's advanced voice mode in Italy. And it's literally just having a conversation. It's easy, it feels natural, it doesn't feel tiring. Looking at 10 different pages of Booking.com results is exhausting. And then if you accidentally click away and then it refreshes, it's just like it's a pain. And having normal voice communication, I think, is just a more naturally human.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting divides, when I talk to Siri, do you say, "Thank you, Siri, please, Siri," or do you just say, "Siri, do this"?
I don't think it, and this has been a subject of debate within the office of like, should we be thanking the LLM? And the more that people bring it up, the more I'm thinking I should be thanking it, just in case we get to AGI or ASI and then like the robots take over, that at least I'll be on their good list.
Yeah. Come on, you want me on the no naughty list?
It's like an omnipresent Santa Claus. It knows if I've been good or not.
We're coming to the end of loving this conversation. We're coming towards the end of the conversation. I want to ask, kind of blue sky, and I think you have certainly not held back at all. So you've been pretty blue sky this whole conversation. But what are your blue sky predictions for like how AI, like this is megatrends for 2025, 2030, 2040? What do you think like AI in travel looks like?
Everyone will have a personal assistant in their pocket that can do everything for them. And so whether that's booking a hotel, a flight, calling an Uber or a Waymo or a Tesla FSD robotaxi, like it'll be able to do all that for you. It'll have memory of who you are, what your preferences are, and it'll just be easy. It'll just be in your pocket. Or maybe by then it'll be in your Neuralink chip or something like that. Who knows? But all I know is that we are quickly marching towards a world where things are easier for people rather than having to spend a bunch of time discovering information.
That can't be a bad thing, can it?
Hopefully not.
All right, well, thank you, Thomas. This is a really wonderful conversation. Thank you for joining us. That was awesome.
All right, so that was the conversation between Seth Borko and Thomas Reiner of Altimeter. Like I said, it was my favorite of the day, but personally, I am not counting Google out yet, and it is something that we're going to be following very closely at Skift. But what did all of you think? Send us an email at podcasts@skift.com. Thanks very much for joining, and until next week. Thank you for listening to the Skift Travel Podcast. Wherever you're listening, please make sure to subscribe. If you like what you're hearing, rate us 5 stars or leave us a positive review. It really helps get the word out about us, our podcast, and make sure that we can still continue to bring it to you free of charge every week.
If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell as well. That way you'll know every time we have a new episode.